Hi guys, welcome to Real Football Talk. I'm your host Hassan. I have Adil with me. We'll be doing the tactical zone approach for this Manchester City versus Leeds game. Adil, what was your take on the approach from Manchester City? Really leaving out lots of their key players, but in terms of how they lined up against Leeds and how did Leeds line up against Man City to counteract them?
Yeah, fascinating approach because Leeds went with the man-for-man system. So the formation was 4-2-3-1, but basically the players were following their man to the T. So even within the first 2 minutes, there was a moment where Bamford ended up at centre-back position because Fernandinho made a run into the box and he literally followed him all the way in to the so a couple of occasions Bamford was actually in defense because of the runs of Fernandinho. So yeah, it's very old school system. You don't see many teams set up like this anymore on a man for man system. So it's fascinating to watch because haven't seen it in the Premiership for a long while, and it's interesting. So what the main thing was what and it's quite. I felt sorry for Bamford and Roberts because what effectively Bielsa was asking Roberts and Bamford to do was to mark out the three City players here, which is Ake, Fernandinho, and Jones. So two players are the job is to man mark three. So they had to share the load. So quite a lot of the times when Bamford was on one side and the ball would go across, Roberts would wait for Bamford to come back in, and then Roberts would go to close down Stones. So what happened was a lot of the times when the only threat, what that made was the real threat, only threat that City had was through Stones and Ake leading the play, because they're effective marking Fernandinho at the game and taking and taking sharing the role of Stones and Ake. So whenever they drove forward in the first half, that's when it looked like something was happening. As for everywhere else, it was man for man, and what that allowed was that allowed Cooper to be the spare man. So Llorente was going in tight on Jesus, and that leaves Cooper to sweep up everything. So that was the main ploy of the man-to-man system.
I mean, they seemed so comfortable, Leeds, didn't they?
Yeah, and the thing was, they were causing City problems on the ball, because what City did was, soon as, especially, and all of Leeds' chances in the first half came from the goal kick. So when the ball started with Meslier, because what happened was Man City went to a system of Sterling picking up Llorente, Jesus going on to Cooper, and because the fullbacks play quite wide and high, what happened was that caused a problem for Mendy, because Mendy was meant to be going tight on Ayling and Aki going across. But what happened was he was reluctant to do it. So the out ball was always the ball to Ayling and then the ball in behind to Rafinha. And then Ake's struggling to commit. And the reason why Aki and Mendy weren't committing to Rafinha was because actually the positioning of Roberts. Every time on the goal kick, Roberts was staying here. So then what happened was Mendy wasn't sure whether to go because he knew Aki had 2-on-1 potentially.
But I mean, Adil, from a say for instance coach's point of view, what should have Mendy done? What should have happened? Or even
the way they played the system is Mendy should have gone in tight. Aki should have moved across Stones, because they effectively got man for man too.
Yeah.
Off the ball, because Sterling's. But
previously, so was there a communication issue then, or was it just them not following the system?
It's just no, they weren't expecting Leeds to play so aggressively. Normally, what City do is they don't take that high risk. So what would happen is Sterling would be on A-Link, Torres would be there, and Jesus would work between the two, and they'll push one of the midfielders in to create. They'll push the midfielders up to do the pressing. But for some reason today, they decided they wanted to pressure Llorente or not let Leeds build up from the goal kick, but that ended up leaving Ayling free all the time. And so that Leeds ended up always having the out ball, and that's how they actually created the two chances for Bamford, which are both first one Rafinha got down the side and played it in. I think that's where that's the area where Bamford probably needs to work on his game. Is he was in space, so he shouldn't really be sprinting in because he was already in space. Like as he jogged in there or he sprinted in there, he should have slowed down, noticing that he's already in space. Because if Rafinha played it where he was running, it would have been an easy clearance for Aki. So he should have recognized that I'm in space, slow down, and Rafinha is going to find me. But because he was sprinting in so much, the ball ended up going behind. And I think the commentators said like the pass was pulled behind. Actually, it was actually a poor run from Bamford. The second was unlucky because I think it just flicked, went through the legs of Stones and flicked it enough to go to just change it enough. But again, I also say Bamford sprinted in a bit too much. He's not timing his runs. And that's, I mean, for all his hard work and movement, that's probably an area he can maybe work on is the timing of his run. So those both chances actually came from Meslier having the ball and clearing it to Ayling.
Bamford deserves a lot of credit also for the goal in terms of the pullback to Dallas, who was, the hero of the game.
Well, I think the main, and this is the thing. So this is why, because of the way Leeds were playing, it was what happened was so this is how things play out in the whole game that affect what was happening during the game. Fernandinho was having to make the runs because when he saw the opportunity, when he saw Stones coming out of the ball or Aki coming out, he realized that he's got a striker, because a lot of the times it ended up being Roberts going onto the, so he makes that run in behind into the box and Bamford's following him in. So Fernandinho's not used to having to make that run as often as he did, and I felt it had a big effect on Leeds' first goal and even the second goal, because Fernandinho's legs were gone. He was actually really tired. So when it came to Dallas, he didn't track the run of Dallas because he was actually too tired. But when has he had to make that many sprints in behind? I mean, a lot of the times Fernandinho was ending up going the furthest player, and the ball didn't come in a lot of the times to him, but he was making that run and forcing Bamford back or Roberts back to man mark him. And that had a direct effect on the goal, and even the fact that Leeds were able to beat the press of City made them have to run back, track back a lot, made them tired. So for the goal, I mean, you never see Cooper have that much time on the ball, ever, to play that ball. I mean, he just was not pressing him because he was tired, because he's playing the false 9 role, trying to link up. And then and Llorente is picking him up, and then he's having to go across all the way when they lose the ball to Cooper. He's too tired now. So I think Leeds' positive approach had a direct effect on the way City pressed and City's willingness to follow the runners, because, I mean, the ball from Cooper is the main thing. Because he actually curled it into out, that's what causes Cancelo the problem, because because he's got a bit of swaz and it looks like it's Stones' ball, and then it curls back out, and that's where Cancelo really struggles to read it, and Costa manages to get in. And again, yeah, excellent play from Bamford to get on the edge and then notice the run of Dallas. Great finish. What a finish. So everything they deserved, really. I felt for the positivity and the high risk. I mean, who plays man for man against City? No one.
Adi, do you think maybe City or Pep kind of got it wrong because of the personnel choice? We all know how kind of Leeds play with regards to man for man, really going for it non-stop. Maybe was playing Fernandinho a wise choice? I mean, who hasn't got the legs as before? Maybe he should have just started with Rodri.
I think at the end of the day, the result midweek plays a big part in the selection. They're clear in the league. Number one. Number two is 2-1 going away to Dortmund. That away goal. The tie's still in the balance, and it's not just the fact that it's the tie's in the balance in terms of scoreline. Dortmund performed well, so I think the lineup is justified. I think I know that Leeds. I mean, if you're playing Leeds, you have to match their running. We've said it previously. No team, man for man, or as a team, runs more than Leeds. I mean, the amount of sprints they do all over the pitch is phenomenal. They are the fittest team. They do the most sprints per player than any team in the Prem, and you have to match that. So I think what Pep tried to do is have 11 fresh players. I mean, I think only Cancelo and Edison played from the last game.
Mm-hmm.
That's how much. And Bernardo Silva. So three players. So eight changes, 8 fresh players is because he knew that Leeds make you run. They force you to run. So I don't think it was wrong. The personnel, he had to make those changes. I think the way Leeds played. If the players weren't fresh, if they had Rodri and all of them playing tired, I think Leeds could have had more success. I mean, we don't know. It's hindsight. But just to give maybe a justification of why Pep would have done that, and I do think it's valid.
But I mean, what do you make of the game kind of changing moment when, I mean, the referee didn't give it, the VAR gave the sending off?
Well, the referee gave after looking at the VAR, but the thing was, it's football now, isn't it? I mean, I think the way I like it as a manager, the way we're used to playing the game and watching it that's a great tackle. It's the type of one where you cheer because you get the ball first and then you leave a bit on the man, and you just normally back when the way we play football that's a great tackle, but now it's a totally different game now, and it was reckless, it was dangerous, and that's probably why the referee gave it only a yellow card, because live it didn't look as bad, but once you see the replays, it really looks bad. And the thing is, live, because of the way Gabriel Jesus kind of turns as the connection's being made, he's trying to avoid it. It makes it look like, oh, it's not as bad because he's tried avoiding the contact. But then when you see it in the replay, or it's above the knee, it's two-legged, wild. So it's definitely now modern day clear cut. The rules have changed to stab those type of tackles out, reckless tackles out of the game. So yeah, it's just something. But the thing is, hopefully there's consistency with that, because that's the issue I have with VAR at the moment. Is there is no rule about what determines the VAR referee telling the match referee to go and look at the video. You will see a tackle from maybe one of the better teams in the Prem do a similar type of tackle on one of the lower teams, and they won't be referred to the video. And no one will talk about it. And this is the thing, the consistency of it is the problem. It's the right decision, but I hope it's not one of those that just the elite teams end up getting because they crowd the referee. Sterling was talking for so long with the referee about the tackle, rightly so. At the time, I thought yellow card was fine. But after you see it back, you have to admit it's a reckless challenge. But
Uh,
hopefully there's consistency with it.
how did the game change? Obviously, what did Pep change in the second half to kind of? I mean,
So
you knew they were going to kind of dominate the game,
yeah,
but
I mean it's easy to say now that the result went in Leeds' favor, but really, I felt straight away that so
Bamford went
Bamford
off. Yeah.
Bamford went off. Oh, should
Cooper.
have. Yes. So what we'll do is what we'll do for now is just put Bamford in as Struik for now. Yeah. So what where the mistake was, I felt that this is the thing. Pep knew that basically because of the way he was utilizing Roberts, and he knew that only thing that's going to change is they're not going to bother with Stones and Ake, but they're going to keep the same setup of man for man.
Yep.
So there's two changes that Pep done. So what he did was he realized the man for man wasn't working. So what he did was and he's done this a lot during the season where he moves the midfielders out wide to split to create the gap for Jesus, and Sterling's playing more as a centre, and they're gonna push Mendy all the way up now. Yeah, and force Rafinha to go all the way back. So, and then the second thing that they did, which was clever. So now both fullbacks are looking to go high and wide, and both wingers are looking to play inside. So that's what they're trying to do now. And forcing Costa to stay man for man. The second thing they did, which was really clever, was Fernandinho became a centre back. So they knew Roberts is only interested in Fernandinho. He's not interested in Stones. So what he did was Fernandinho effectively played as a centre back. So that was clever because that ruined Leeds' system because that made it very easy. So Aki played like an effective left back, and they just left Stones to drive through. And the first 5 minutes, he was driving through without anyone leaving their man.
Yeah.
And then realized, hold on there, they've done this clever thing of they've made Fernandinho a centre back, and so now we don't need him on Fernandinho. We need him staying in that gap. So what happened was the adjustment that was made was Roberts, instead of going totally man for Robert, Fernandinho, he stayed in line, but he just sat in slightly. So when Stones goes, he's able to follow it. And the other players were leaving their man forward. He wasn't looking to play it square. So if you leave your man and pressure him, he's not going to turn on it again and go out wide to Bernardo Silva. So that's where the changes Pep made didn't work. And I felt they kind of played into Leeds' hand, knowing Leeds' system, because you'll always want Stones to be the one trying to play the balls in behind. He's not going to have the quality to do that. So then a lot of the times he ended up having to go square on the side he's facing.
Yeah.
And then the ball would just go out wide to Mendy or Cancelo, and the cross would come in, which by then everyone in the Leeds side has just compacted the box.
I mean, do you think maybe this is where they needed to bring in the likes of, I don't know, Mahrez or De Bruyne they had on the bench? I mean, they finally bought on Gundogan.
If you look at attacking wise, it's arguably Foden you could understand them bringing on. Gundogan you can understand them bringing him on. And the thing was, Gundogan changed it because what he did was, so this is the thing. So you see with Bernardo, they'll stay out wide and they'll kind of overlapping out here to create overlaps out wide. which I felt that was the mistake of the game, because Leeds were comfortable for City to have the ball out wide and keep crossing the ball. So that was where Pep made the mistake. But when Gundogan came on for
Zinchenko. Yep, it's just
what happened was he didn't bother with this going out wide business. He went straight down the middle, and so he ended up his run was always straight down the middle. So then he ends up moving people away. And where the problem was there wasn't an awful lot of movement from Sterling and Torres, or not enough in around the box. So that's where Leeds were able to contain, and because they kept Rafinha. So once Zinchenko went off, and it's Ake basically going there, what they did is they left Rafinha up there. They left Rafinha up there, make Dallas and Phillips go out to Mendy. And even it got to the point where even Costa, at some points when Rafinha had to come in, Costa stayed out there. So they always had that out ball. That was towards the last 10 minutes. They figured that out. Again, I think City's changes helped Leeds at the end. Because again, they bought Foden, I think Foden came in from Mendy.
For Mendy, yeah.
Yeah. So again, you haven't actually changed anything. All Foden was doing is getting crosses in and looking more of a threat. Obviously, he's a better player than Mendy attacking wise. So yeah, he's getting on the ball more, causing more problems. But Leeds, it didn't change Leeds' shape in any way or form. And Gundogan was still in midfield, but only difference, he wasn't staying out wide. He's running in on the box where they had so many players. So the big surprise is, Kevin De Bruyne didn't come on. I think if you're going to question anything, they had one more sub left. They didn't bring Kevin De Bruyne on. And the goal looked, before Dallas got his second,
Rafinha's run.
Rafinha had two great opportunities to create something. So, one of them was an excellent tackle from Edison. What a tackle that was.
I was surprised.
And the second one was
he didn't try.
Sorry?
I was surprised he didn't try lob it over the keeper.
I think you have to credit Edison, because he stayed upright.
Yeah.
And then suddenly dived in like a proper defender. And
and wins it clean. He wins it clean.
Yeah, and that's what the great keepers do. They don't do things in a conventional way, so they make you try something else that you're not comfortable doing, and they bring the percentages to their favor. So excellent goalkeeping from Edison, but obviously for the winner, he got nuts. So
credit to Dallas again to run through. Great play from Costa and Alioski, and for the run from Dallas through the middle. That energy at 93rd minute still.
Yeah, but you see, and that's the thing. I think Dallas and Phillips ran more and had to defend more in the first half than they did in the second half. They kind of stayed in their spot. They didn't have to. And partly is because of the way City's changes. City played into. They were so fixated on not falling for the trap of Robert staying on Fernandinho that they forgot. Who cares if he stays? Who cares if he stays in Fernandinho? Still pop it around, and they just didn't do it. They're so fixated on creating this scene of Stones causing havoc. And he dribbled it the whole second half. What did he do with it? Nothing. You're better off just keeping that system. So what if no one presses your centre backs? You still dominate the game and play your football and force people to move about.
Do you think they moved
it? That allowed them to stay compact.
Do you think they moved it too slow? Because to me, it seemed like there wasn't any.
Well, they were dribbling, didn't it? Ultimately, the problem was Stones were dribbling, and always when you're dribbling in a low block, it's a waste of time because you're not moving the defenders. They're not coming out to you, So you're not creating an overload by dribbling. They're staying in their block. So you're ultimately all you're doing is wasting time because you're not shifting any of the defenders. If they're pressing you and then you dribble, fine, you've created an overload. But because they're sitting there, the whole, they wasted the extra man.
Yeah.
Effectively, they wasted the extra man by just not playing the ball in tight spaces and forcing Phillips and everyone to move around. Because just imagine if they did do that, if Jesus played there, and they just serve the ball into the players. He's still having to move about.
Yeah.
He's still having to move about. They're still having to move around. And that would have made them tired. But it was relatively comfortable because of the way City played into their hands and got fixated on. So it's a tactical win for Bielsa, definitely.
I mean, I for one, when I saw Dallas score that second goal, was clapping as a neutral fan. Watching that, it was just mesmerizing, really.
Yeah, and like I said before the goal, they were still going for it. And this Leeds team just doesn't follow any convention, you know.
And I mean, again, another entertaining game from them, isn't it? So
Yeah, I mean, fascinating, and it's great to watch. Great to see a team pull off the man marking system, and again, this is why uh, the lineup didn't work for City because I mean, Sterling, because Sterling was playing so narrow. Uh, the only guy who is a dribbler and can beat a man, you're not playing to his strengths because you're not keeping him out wide to run at people, and it's a man for man system. So wherever Sterling went, Ayling followed him. There was one point where Sterling went right to the edge on 10 position. Ayling was there.
yeah,
That's how aggressively Leeds were doing the man for man marking. So then the only other dribblers or players who can commit and create the overload are De Bruyne and Mahrez.
Morris.
They stayed on the pitch. All right, Foden too. Foden could do it as well. So I think definitely would have been a different line if it wasn't for the Champions League game coming up.
I mean, fantastic win for Leeds from a neutral point of view. Great game for us to watch and enjoy, really. Thank you, Adi, for coming on. Guys, there's more shows, more analysis coming up throughout the week. Do keep an eye out. And as always, please support us by subscribing to the channel and share it with everyone that you know. Thank you, guys. Thank you, Adi.